name's John Utzi. I'm with Merhow Industries. Today we're going to talk about the one thing that's been on all of our minds, winterization. As the cold weather comes, we want to make sure that we prepare our living quarters horse trailers for the cold weather so that we don't have any issues come springtime. To do this, it's just a few simple steps. We're going to walk you through it and try to hit some of the key points and give you some directions on completing this task. The first thing you want to do is drain your tanks. It's a pretty simple deal. We all know how to dump the waste tanks. The fresh tank is something that you might not be as familiar with. You want to drain the fresh tank. Most of these are located underneath the trailer. Some of the older models, they might be inside. You can locate this with the fresh water connection on the side, and underneath there's one valve that you turn and it'll start to drain the tank. Step 2 to this process is making sure that you have all of the valves turned correctly. On the valves I'm referring to, there's going to be 2 at your pump and 2 at your water heater in the new 2022 models. Some of the older models may have a 3-valve system at the water heater. I'll go over that as well. First, let's go over the new models, the 2022s. Locate your water heater, maybe underneath the cabinet, underneath the vanity, refrigerator, and some of those various locations. After you found that, you'll notice that you have 2 valves on here, one on your hot and one on your cold. All these require is to be turned. When they're turned in line with the water lines, that's your winterization mode. That's all you have to do for this water heater. On the older models, there's another valve configuration with 3 valves. The way that this is right here, when they're all horizontal, that is in non-winterization mode. When they're all vertical, now you're ready for winterization. Okay, the next step is locating your pump. In various models, your pump will be located either underneath the sink base or underneath the steps. Some of the older models with different living quarters other than a Merhow living quarter, those may be different to find and may need help locating it. This particular model is located underneath the steps. It's a little hard to see. It's tucked in there pretty well, but there's going to be 2 valves. One of them is going to be located all the way down off the pump that goes down to the tank, and the other one's going to be located on the winterization line. The one for the winterization line needs to be parallel with the hose. The one that goes down to the tank needs to be perpendicular, which will be cutting supply off from the tank to the pump. After that, there's one more step to draining the system, and then we can start to flush antifreeze through it. The next step is going to be draining your water heater. This one here is a little tricky, but I'm going to show you how to stay dry when you're winterizing it. It's a pretty simple method. You're going to need a large socket. It's a 1 1/16 socket for most applications. Some of them are 1 1/8, but mostly 1 1/16. The first thing you're going to want to do is release the pressure from the water heater. If you don't release the pressure, when you pull the anode rod, you're going to get wet. So you want to hit the relief valve right here. Allow all the pressure to come out. Once that's done, you want to close the valve again. That creates a vapor lock so that when you take the anode rod out, it doesn't drench you. So then we're going to loosen the anode rod. And stay out of the way. And then release the pressure. You should get a good flow of water that'll let it drain. And now we're going to drain the lines out just to make it easier to get antifreeze through it and not mix in too much water. Right here you'll locate your low point drains. All the trailers are marked on the outside of where they're at, and they're just 2 valves that are located underneath the trailer. When you turn those, you'll get a little bit of water that comes out. Not a lot, but you'll get some. You want to open those and allow the water pressure to come out, and then close them again. We'll come back out here when we get some antifreeze going and run that through there as well, just to make sure those stay safe. All right, now we're going to get some antifreeze running through the system. Here at Merhow, we're kind of spoiled. We have some fittings set up to where we can run it to a big 55-gallon drum. But in your application, you're probably going to be using about a 1-gallon container. That's okay. You take this hose here, you stick it in your 1-gallon container, make sure it's submerged all the way to the bottom so as you run out, you don't start sucking air in. The other thing to watch for is when you take the cap off, there is going to be a grommet inside this cap. That's just help when that seals that up when you put the cap back on. Don't lose that. Now, we're going to turn the pump on and get some antifreeze running to each location. We're going to go progressively from the pump to the back. That way we get it at each location and we don't miss anything. Okay, now we're going to start running the antifreeze through each location. What we're gonna do is we're gonna turn on each faucet, hot and cold, separately. If you do them together, you might not be sure if you got both sides good with antifreeze. So what you're gonna do is turn on each side. You'll start to see a steady stream of pink coming through. And once you do, you wanna let that run through until you get full pink going. Once you get a full stream of pink, let it run for a few seconds to make sure that you adequately get the P-traps filled with antifreeze. The pump should agitate, and you'll probably get a little bit of air coming through after we've drained the lines. That's okay, and it's pretty normal. Now you're starting to get the antifreeze coming through. And we're starting to see some pink there. And make sure we get the other side too. All right, and make sure that we get both P-traps. That way they're well protected. After you've run it through both sides, you can double up on the faucet to increase the flow a little bit. All right, we're good with that. Let's make sure we get the shower, the bath vanity, and the toilet as well. Again, you want to make sure you get enough pink through there that you get the P-traps filled up with antifreeze as well. And then we're going to do the very important not to miss the toilet. And if you have a sprayer on the toilet, make sure you get that as well. Now that we've gotten all the inside components, let's not forget there's 3 outside components we don't want to miss also. All right, for the outside components, we want to make sure we're back at the low points now. Although we drained them, a lot of times water falls back into the bottom of those low points. So we want to make sure that we get adequate amount of antifreeze through the valve so they don't crack and break. And that should do it for the low points. Then you want to make sure that we get the outside spigot. All these outside spigots are equipped with a frost spigot, but you still want to make sure you get some antifreeze in them. All right, now that we got the other 2 components, we're going to talk about one that a lot of people forget about, and that's your city fill. Your city fill is right on the outside of the trailer, so the last thing we want to do is have that exposed without being protected. To do that, you want to open it up, and there's a little screen in here that can be removed. Probably not a bad idea to clean it at this time as well if it's needed. You might need some pliers or something to get that out and help you out. But what we're going to do here, if you want to stay out of the way, is push in this little valve right here, and you should get some water out of it. Once you get some pink out of there, now you're well protected there as well, and your trailer's ready for winter.